You good? All right. All right, welcome back to the Blood Prison Shakedown. We've been gone for a few months. We had Halloween season coming in, and it was an epic Halloween season, like it was for a lot of haunted attractions in Ohio and around the country. It was great. Record numbers, record crowds. It was a good time. It was definitely busy to squeeze into October, but we're back here on the Shakedown, and I couldn't ask for a better guest to bring us back and end the year in than a great friend, mentor, guy that I worked with for many years before we started doing this. And everybody welcome in Robert Kurtzman.
Hey, thanks for having me, Vic.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks for coming.
Anytime.
How you been?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Yep. Not enjoying this cool weather that's
a little
in, but
yeah. It's a little chilly out, but what are you going to do? You spent so much time in Atlanta where it's a little warmer, so now you got to get your Ohio vibe back going.
They've had some days down there that are similar to ours, so I'm like,
yeah.
It's not much. They just don't get the snow.
No, of course not, which I'm sure is good. So listen, just getting things rolling. Robert Kurtzman's been worked on tons of movies, special effects wise, since the 80s. And you could look at his IMDb page and just be there all day looking at everything that you've been involved in. I met Bob. Is it Bob? I know him as Bob. Everyone calls him Robert. I met Bob back in, my late radio days, which was
2003-ish.
Yes. Yeah. You guys were promoting a haunted attraction that you were opening up over in Crestline, Ohio, which is not far from here at the Reformatory. And got to interview you and your friend Gino on the radio. And that was a lot of fun. That was just like, oh, it's going to be so cool. You know what I mean? Got to fill in, got to do that. And that's kind of my first, not real, haunted attraction experience, but I went to your guys' haunted attraction. I've been to other ones before, had a great time. And it kind of just rolled into it from there. For me personally, you've done tons of stuff, aside from haunted attractions, been all over the map as far as, special effects wise. A lot of stuff coming up, in the near future here. You got the Black Friday, which is out now.
Yeah.
It's in theaters.
Yeah, and it comes out on VOD next week.
Next week?
I think it's 24th.
24th, yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's just a couple days, yeah.
Yep. Devin Sawa, Bruce Campbell, Michael J. White,
yep.
Ryan Lee. It's just a fun movie.
It is. The trailer looked good. I haven't seen the movie yet, but the trailer was fun. Your son is in the movie.
Louis in it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was great. It was
I think
great.
he has the most screen time as far as a monster, I think, in it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, because you came into the shop and you were doing another thing for Netflix and he dressed up in the suit and you guys were doing all that. So he's been working a lot too, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, well, he's keeping busy, but he's also doing other things and acting in film, but he's also in the production side of things.
That's great.
Trying to just get his, get some credits and foot in the door.
Absolutely, I get it for sure. I remember Louis it's because I'm old now, so it's like I remember Louis yelling at me I'm at the bank, and I'm sitting here and I hear this little kid, Vic, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? I look over and there's Louis waving from the playground, a little kid, and now he's playing monsters and along Bruce Campbell and everything else. It's awesome, man.
Well, we tortured him at a very young age in the Rage.
In the Rage, that's right, yeah, that's right.
And killed him off.
I was going to say, you did more in torture.
I guess that's where then he picked up the bug.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they did great. I remember that. They did great. That was a fun movie. That was a fun time. So just for everyone, people always, I get a lot of questions because I worked with you for so long that people always ask me a lot of stuff. Like, well, what did he do? I'm like, dude, I'm not his biographer. Okay. I don't know. They're like, tell me about Bob. What's he like? I'm like, he likes action movies, horror, and AC/DC. That's what I know. I mean, what do you want me to tell you? But so I figured we could talk a little bit about because we talk haunted attractions and Halloween here mostly. That's what we do. And I know you've had your experience in that as well. Did you do the Halloween stuff as a kid? I mean, aside from trick or treating, makeup, and getting dressed up on Halloween and all that good stuff.
I mean, yeah. As a kid, my mom would build things and.
Yeah.
If I wanted to go out as an astronaut, she'd get everything, helmet and make me up, put a jumpsuit on, whatever. And then I'd make her carry, I don't know if you remember these things, but remember those sweepers that had all the attachments and they had the hose that came out, but it looked like a suitcase?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that looked like those things that the astronauts carry in with their oxygen tanks or whatever, and the little... So I was fixated on carrying that around as an astronaut.
Yeah.
So I made her drag that that suitcase box, but it was really heavy.
Yeah.
You know, it was a vacuum cleaner, so she had to wheel it around town while he trick-or-treated in a spaceman outfit, you know.
That's awesome. But, I'm sure she enjoyed that.
Oh.
So then what about like haunted houses? Like, do you remember the first one you ever went to?
Yeah, it was probably one of the JC ones around here, around Crestline or Galleon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, you know, like a 2-story house, I think, at the point.
Right.
And you just go in and up the stairs and they, you know.
Yeah.
They weren't real intricate back then.
No. Probably not. I remember the first time I went to one, I've told this story before, where it was just some guy's woods and they were having a party. I was a kid. And I remember a guy jumping out of a tree with a chainsaw, and we just like scattered, like all of us just like separate in 9 different directions because we honestly thought we were going to die, you know, so that's what made it fun. It's hard to give that vibe now, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a Ohio State Fair when I was a kid. They had one of those portable deals or the trailer versions of the haunted house, and I was dying to go into that, and then they couldn't get me, like they had to come in and get me out of it because I wouldn't go past the Frankenstein monster in the cage.
Yeah.
Who was reaching out, grabbing people.
Yeah.
And I froze in there. Like after that, I was like, I was screaming. You could hear me screaming over the speakers, and my cousins had to come in and get me out.
That's awesome. So then when was your first real, you know, peak of interest? You know, I want to do makeup or appliances on somebody. I mean, was that like come naturally, or did you evolve into that? How'd that work?
Probably in high school.
Yeah.
Prior to that, though, I was collecting, you know, the monster magazines, and Famous Monsters and Fangoria, and then I didn't really know that that's what I wanted to do. I was always into art, so I went to art school, but then that's where I kind of decided, what am I really interested in here? Well, I've always been interested in this.
Right.
So I should really go train for that. So that's when I, you know, went to LA and then took a makeup course, like 12-week makeup course.
Right on.
But then I just, you know, because I was doing art all the time, I was always painting and drawing and stuff. I ended up just, it was easy for me, at least, to transition into that. Even though I had to take straight makeup courses and stuff that really wasn't, you know, I didn't want to be a straight makeup artist at that time. So
right.
Just wanted to make monsters. And they didn't really have, at that time, a good effects program that taught heavy prosthetics or anything. But it taught the basics of it, enough for me to get my foot in the door at a shop, at a studio, effects studio. And that's, you know.
Yeah.
And I kind of learned on the job after that. But,
right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, you know, again, not to sound old, but think about it now compared to then. I mean, is that still happening? Is people still like going to LA and trying to get their foot into an effects shop? You know what I mean? Or is it all, you know, I mean, think about it from now to then. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's, well, I'm sure it happens. People still want to go to LA, you know, but I think because filming is happening a lot of different places now because of the tax incentives and stuff in different states, that they can just, you know, you don't have to make that choice of going to LA or New York.
Right.
So, you know, Atlanta, there's New Mexico, there's Louisiana, there's Mobile, there's Alabama. So North Carolina, everybody has kind of an incentive package. So.
Sure. And that's got to be just, you know, yeah, but I mean, looking back going, geez, you know, I did this, but I mean, I'm sure you probably wouldn't change anything, but, you know, looking around, it's like, man, if I had the opportunities that are there now, you know what I mean? Because like you said, there's movies being made everywhere. It's not just on a studio lot, you know? So it's just that, you know, people have those, I guess just more opportunities now to get there, you know, more schools, more, you know, things like that.
There is, I mean, but, you know, there's more people wanting to get into it now.
Yeah.
Back when we got into it, the early 80s, it was kind of I don't know, it was just a smaller kind of group of people that wanted to do it.
Right, more of like a niche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it took, you know, I mean, that era of effects guys all came up with the same upbringing or the same interests when they were growing up. Mm-hmm. If you talk to almost any effects guy, they almost all had that same thing. They spent a lot of time watching movies and late night horror host shows, and you know, and very similar upbringings to where today it's completely different because everything's so accessible. The like movies, like when were kids, we would have to wait a whole year to watch a specific movie.
Right.
Again, like King Kong or whatever. And today you can watch it. It's almost too much, you don't even know what to choose.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
I don't know the differences, now with like what influenced us growing up and now what influences kids to want to do what we do.
That's so true what you said. Like it's almost too much.
Yeah.
Like because I feel that exact same way when I'm on like Prime or
you can
whatever it is.
For like an hour just trying to figure out what to watch. Am I really in the mood for that or whatever?
Exactly.
I guess it would be back in the day we were basically opening TV Guide and circling everything we could find that was coming on that was of interest.
Right. What time's this?
Oh, it's at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
This pre-VCR, so you're like,
I
really want to stay up and watch that. You
know?
But
it's different, man, because it's just so how it's evolved so much and so rapidly since the turn of the century. How that has just skyrocketed, from music to movies, is how available everything is now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's kind of cool though. I mean, I have my collection of DVDs, and of course, I still collect certain ones. Mm-hmm. Most of the ones I've worked on, or occasional one I really love, like Hitman's Bodyguard or something. I'll go, I'm going to buy that because I'll watch it 20 times.
Right.
But then you got all that shelf space, too. Like it's kind of nice not having that and just going, hey Alexa, find me this movie. I'm really in the mood tonight.
Right. Yeah.
And if it's available, she'll find it. You may have to pay for it.
Right. Of course. Yeah. That'll never change.
Yeah.
But it is nice having that availability. There's parts of, but I don't want to see theaters go away. I was so worried that like theaters were going to go away after everything, from last year. I was just like, man, I hope this doesn't happen because I love getting popcorn and going to the theater. You know what I mean? That experience.
We just went the other day and saw Ghostbusters.
And
it's fun.
Yeah.
And the same thing, I had my buckets of popcorn. We were just sitting, we were like kids. Hey, this is so much fun. It's going to be so good. And I miss that,
Sure.
I don't mind watching stuff at home sometimes, but, if it's an event film, I want to go out and see it.
Me too. Yeah, I agree. I remember back in the P-13 days where we would do movie nights. Like we went and saw when King Kong came out. I think we saw one of the Star Wars. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was just like those things that we did that was still fun, even back then, even now, it's just fun to do that because it's just, you're getting out there and you're doing something and it's traditional.
It's a different feeling too in a theater with a crowd compared to, because they're participating together.
Yeah.
Where it's only a couple people in a room, it's a little different than, the experience is different. So, and it's hard now too. I mean, because seeing event films now, they're like, sometimes they're cool and everything, but it's probably just because we're getting older, but there's nothing that is impactful like it was when we were kids.
No.
Like
it's true.
Nothing impacts me at the theater, like seeing Indiana Jones for the first time or Star Wars or any of those, or Jaws, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like you see the movies now and you're like, all right. I expect all the spectacle.
Yeah.
But it's not new, everybody's doing it. So.
It seems like that, like when you're at home watching something, you might just be like, all right, here we go. But like when you're at a theater and like a Star Wars movie and that opening music starts and everyone starts yelling and, it's just like, all right, you know what I mean? It gives you that,
Especially like with Ghostbusters, there's so much nostalgia there that everybody was reacting to everything like that. So it was like a real, it was a fun time and everybody was very excited.
That's hard to do, man, because, I mean, I've seen so many movies like sequels from movies that were, maybe 15, 20 years ago. They're like, oh my God, I love that movie. I can't believe they're making another one or a sequel. And then you watch it and you're just like, damn it.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel the same.
Yeah, this one does. I mean? This one
That's
has
good.
A lot of heart and really plays up a lot of the stuff from the first two movies.
Right.
And it's just a really good family picture.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I've been busy. Like I said, been wrapping up the Halloween season, so my time has been very limited. But, definitely that's a Thanksgiving, vacation that we're on here to go see that. Hopefully maybe Saturday or Sunday. We're talking about going to see it because it does. It brings you back to, I remember my friend, I won't say his name because I don't want to embarrass him, but he didn't make it through the first Ghostbusters movie when we were kids.
It was too scary?
Because it was too scary. the part in the library where and just raw, and he just lost it. And I remember he went, and I was pissed because he went to see it, and I didn't get to go. I didn't see it until later, and I was like, "Was it good?" He's like, "I don't know, man. I didn't make. What are you talking about?" We're in like second or third grade. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Scary, man. We've watched all these other movies, But yeah, that's good stuff. So, just so everybody can kind of, if they don't know, what's going on, Bob, your movie credit list can go back to the 80s with Evil Dead 2. You worked on the Army of Darkness, and then through that, and then K&B, the whole K&B thing with your friends Howard Berger and Greg Nicotero. You started that company up. From Dusk Till Dawn and all that, all those great movies that you've been on. Which one? And this is another one that I get asked a lot, and I'm not really sure. I think I know, but everyone's like, "Dude, what movie back then did he love? Like, what did he have the most fun working on?" And I'm like, I don't know. I'll ask him.
Well, the early days, it would have been Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness.
See, I said Evil Dead 2.
They were literally 10 years apart, approximately. Like one was 86. When it came out, and one was 90. We did in 91. I think.
Yeah.
So a few years apart from each other, but the experience of working on those was just so much fun, and it was hard work, really hard work.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. We just had it was kind of family unit crew. We kind of were on location together, and very tight unit. So everybody got to know everybody, and we hung out after work together. We were at the same hotels, at the same or staying at the same houses, and because they take over a little small town, and we would rent a farmhouse out, and the effects guys all stayed in the farmhouse, and so that part of it was, and the experience of working with Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell for the first time, and Rob Tappert, their producing partner, and and then we went on to work with them for years after that. But that was those two movies I think were the most fun, from the early days.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that before, because I, being the fan guy I am, I probably asked you, it's like, what's you said Evil Dead 2, that was so much fun, and I'm because it's a great movie, all of them are, but it's just thinking back on, it's just funny because like the first time I met you, and I was like, holy shit, I didn't realize that, you know what I mean? Like all these movies that you were involved in, I was just like, holy shit. So I'm talking to that guy. And then I get that, of course, now I get that about you. It's the funniest thing in the world because everyone will ask me stuff about that. Somebody called me. This is no bullshit. This is recent, actually. Somebody called me because when you get into that industry as little as I was in it, because I wasn't in it very long, really, just helping you out at the shop and that kind of stuff, but nothing notable, on my end. But somebody called me, how they got my number, and asked me about this whole, I don't know, whatever the Alec Baldwin thing that happened on set, called me. Some news guy up in Cleveland calls me up and asks me about protocols on set and all this stuff. I'm like, hold on a minute. I'm like, what? I don't understand. What are you calling me for?
Yeah.
And I mean, he just like was straight to it on the phone. He's like, I want to talk to you about, this incident in New York. And I was like, okay, what do you mean? He's like, what protocols are, I'm like, why are you calling me? You know what I mean? So I even get stuff like that because I worked in that industry with you and, everybody else. But it was just baffling to me. I'm just like, when you want to call somebody else that might have maybe a little better idea than some guy who runs a haunt in Mansfield?
Right.
It was just crazy. What did you hear on that one? Just what everybody else?
Yeah, pretty much everything that was on the news. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. I heard about that. I thought it was like one of those jokes, you always, so-and-so died, and I thought the same thing, like, oh, that ain't true. That's got to be a fabrication.
Well, you knew it was going to happen again. I mean,
the
Brandon Lee thing, but eventually, if just one small, it just shows you like a very simple, small mistake.
Yeah.
If it's overlooked and somebody doesn't follow, they said they're tired the next day, they just don't check. It could be anything. And so they really need to, step up those safety protocols.
Yeah, for sure. And they're there for a reason, but I just found it ironic that people were calling me and I'm just like, look, I don't know what to tell you, man. I really don't, So It was just funny because that's what I get looped into just from like when you know somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just because you've worked on a film, it's like automatically you're the expert on
right,
gun
exactly.
handling or something.
But, like, I've never, touched a prop gun in my life, I mean, or worked with one. But so getting into, because you've done everything really from the effects to writing, directing. What is your, what do you like doing out of all that? Like if you had your choice, what are you going to do?
Well, of course it would be directing.
Yeah.
But I do have fun doing the effects stuff. So.
Right.
But, I really have a good time when I'm actually directing a film.
Yeah.
It's stressful, of course. Yeah. But it's rewarding. But so is doing, effects work. So
yeah.
I enjoy that. It really depends. You get on the right show and have the right experience, and it's a great time. And get on the wrong show, have a miserable experience.
Yeah.
It's like, and then you're like, why am I doing this?
But, yeah, we've all had those. That's for sure. So on the From Dusk Till Dawn, so you wrote the original story on that, and then they ended up making the movie on it. Yeah, Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino, George Clooney.
Well, we spent.
How did that?
Yeah. It took 10 years or so to do that. Because when I wrote the story. We hired Quentin. Me and John Esposito hired Quentin to write the screenplay. He hadn't actually had anything. He hadn't been paid to write anything yet. Mm-hmm. It was the first kind of thing that we paid him for. That enabled him to quit his job and start writing.
Sure.
Taking it seriously. At that time, he had already written 3 screenplays that were amazing, which is Natural Born Killers, True Romance, and Reservoir Dogs. Then I spent 10 years trying to get it off the ground, lots of ups and downs, lots of almosts, and a lot of rejections because nobody understood. They thought it was too violent, too vulgar, and they didn't understand how it flipped to a vampire movie halfway through. Yeah. So it was like suddenly it's a gangster movie and then suddenly a vampire movie. So, yeah. Which is why it's so loved.
Exactly.
Actually. So,
yes.
And so we spent 10 years trying to get it off the ground, and basically because I wouldn't let it go, I wanted to direct it, and that was the intention of the whole idea. So eventually, after all that time, the opportunity came up to make a deal, and then Robert Rodriguez was interested, and that was like, we were like, maybe this is the time to get this movie off the ground. It's going to be a bigger movie. Robert's really hot now. He's just coming off of El Mariachi and Desperado, and so it was like perfect, and it's a perfect movie for him to do. So I stepped back as director and just handled the effects and was a producer on it and got the story credit, but that was a smart thing. I think it's a very well loved movie. It's a classic in some people's minds, and it did a lot more, than what was intended, because it was I really wanted it just to make it like $1.5 million. This is in the late '80s, '90s, $1.5 million like kind of gritty, down and dirty, low budget vampire movie. Yeah. And it kind of ballooned. Yeah. And launched the careers of George Clooney and other film careers.
Right. So, right. Yeah. Well, and it's one of those movies too where I mean obviously I wasn't there, but it looked like it had to have been fun to make. It was fun to watch. I remember watching the first time and just, it was one of those, like, this is such a fun movie. You know what I mean? Because it was a gangster movie and now they're in this vampire lair. It was just like, what the hell? You kind of knew going in, but, it was great. Was it like that working on it? Was it fun?
It was, but it was also, it was long. It was long hours. Yeah. Lots of people in makeups. It was very hot. Yeah. Even on the stages. It was just, those shows aren't necessarily always fun. Yeah. The experience, there's an energy level that makes it fun. Mm-hmm. And that would be like Robert's energy, filmmaking wise. It's like, that's just fun to be around because it's so shotgun style. It's like, wow, do this, do that, cool this. Yeah. Let's put me in a wheelchair and I'll move the camera around. It's like guerrilla style coolness. But nobody, it was hot. And Like everybody was tired. I think there was days where some of the guys would just crash in the back room where the monsters were all being prepped and stuff, and then walk out to the stage because they had to be there at 5 a.m. the next day.
Yeah.
So
it's got to be rough, man. It's not all fun and games when you're doing that. Then that's what you're basically telling people.
Well, you've been on it.
Well, I remember when we did the Rage.
Yeah.
We did commercials for your father or for the family business, and that was fun. I had a good time on that. But when we did the Rage, I was like super excited. I was so pumped up to do this. I was just like, "This is gonna be great," I'm like, "This is gonna be fun. This is gonna be awesome. I can't wait to And then I remember our first day, I get all my gear and I'm getting it all set up, and I'm like, "All right, I'm ready." I'm sitting here just like, "Let's do it," And you're like, "All right," and I'm like, "What are we doing?" And it was just like, "Oh man, what are we doing?" We're just kind of I got to wait on makeup, or you got to wait on lighting, or there's just all these different pieces.
The first 2 days on that, we were out in the freezing cold.
Yeah.
It was like 30 degrees.
Oh, that was horrible.
Behind the studio shooting the car sequence.
Yeah.
And,
the
head
splitter.
Then it got really fun because the next sequence was with Divoff, and we shot it on the stage there.
Yeah.
And we spent 5 or 6 days shooting that awesome opening fight sequence. So,
it was great.
Which I really love. So, yeah.
We went out, and then we went out to here in Mansfield, where a friend of ours used to live, had a bunch of acreage, and that was where Louis was, played in the movie and everything. But I think that was like, because the other ones were kind of just a few days here and there, but when we went out there, it was like that first real big, and but it was like we had the big crew and the grip trucks, and I remember I was just like, I've made it. No.
And that wasn't even a big crew.
No.
So
they've done movies here at the Reformatory, and I was just like, holy shit, man, this is big. You know what I mean? But I mean, that was so much fun, and I was just in my, it was like, man, I'm having a great time. I'm working with great people, and it's a fun job. Yeah. So it really was. It's just keeping it consistent enough to make it a job is the trick, So, but I had a great time on that movie. I really did. I was probably, I've only worked on a handful, but that was definitely my favorite movie working. Well, plus I was in it.
Yeah.
Do you like doing that? I notice, in a lot of movies that, like, in Wishmaster, you're the piano guy, and was it Deadly Impact? You played the guy at the door.
Yeah.
You like doing that? What's your acting capabilities?
Dying, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not an actor, but I can open a door and say,
yeah.
And then get shot.
Or,
act in reverse while my head gets ripped off.
Yeah, that was great.
Piano wire or something.
That was good stuff, man. So in directing, so you didn't get to direct From Dusk Till Dawn, but that, worked out. So then you directed The Demolitionist. Was that 95?
Now, literally halfway through shooting of From Dusk Till Dawn, I had to go prep to shoot Demolitionist. That's how fast it happened.
Yeah.
Right at that time.
Okay.
So literally, the producer Don Borchers, who I'd worked with before, he had asked if I had anything that I wanted to do, and I gave him the idea, and then we kind of developed it a little, and then he's like, "Can you get me some artwork?" So of course I had Bisson do up a couple comic book panels of The Demolitionist, and he took that to 2 companies and had the money in 3 weeks. So he's like, "Hey, we're making this movie." I go, "But I'm in the middle of this other thing."
Yeah.
He goes, "Well, you want to do it?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I got to do this movie." So,
what was that like? You said you spent 10 years trying to get Dusk Till Dawn, and then you're like, "Oh, in 3 weeks we had the money." You're just
yeah,
really?
I know, it's right timing.
Yeah, sure,
it's fine. But I had a great time making that film, and then years went by then, until Wishmaster. So it was like pounding the pavement after that, trying to get a show.
Yeah.
There's a lot of straight to... Okay, so at that time, straight to video was kind of like slumming it.
Mm-hmm.
And Wishmaster came about after that, and was a theatrical.
Right.
So it was really hard to, I got a lot of offers to do straight to video movies. And usually they were sequels to something that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I kept turning them down. and because I had a day job, so I really didn't care. I'm like, I don't want to do that movie. I'll be in video hell for the rest of my life.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
But things have changed since then. You know, television and VOD and straight to like it's the market now. Like it's different than back then, where if it came out on VHS, you were like, you know, oh, doomed. He's that guy. You know.
Right.
Yeah. Never give him a theatrical feature again. You know?
Sure.
So, I kind of was very picky for a long time.
Yeah.
Until you know. And then I was like, oh, I just want to direct.
Right.
So,
yeah. Yeah.
But
Wishmaster was cool though because it had Andrew Devoff, Tammy Lauren. Is that how you said her last name?
Tammy Lauren. Yeah.
Lauren. Okay, I wasn't sure. Yeah. But it also had Robert Englund, who plays Freddy, of course. Kane Hodder, who played Jason in a couple of the Jason movies.
Mm-hmm. A lot more.
Yeah. Tom Savini was in it. Mm-hmm. Yes. And no.
And I'm sorry. Oh, and what?
Wishmaster.
No, he's not.
He's not.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, people mistake this guy that looks like Tom.
Is that what it was?
In the pharmacy scene, I had some guy ask me that the other day, and I said no, he's not in that.
Okay.
And I the guy just, we cast some extras, and he just looked like.
Maybe I'm thinking Dusk. Maybe I'm thinking
he's
Dusk.
In Dusk. Yeah. But he's in Demolitionist. But,
right. But Vern Troyer was also in Wishmaster, which most people don't probably know that because of the character he played. But, so there was actually, as a, looking back, it's like, that's a pretty good cast right there. Now I know that one, being your first big, probably directing gig, were you stoked on that movie?
Yeah, no, it was a really, I'm very proud of that movie, and it actually kind of holds up. I mean, it holds up today. Even the effects hold up, which is odd because it's so old. And at first, it was like kind of the first of the CGI stuff on when the small boutique shops were opening up doing CGI, and so some of that maybe is a little crude, but everything else it still holds up pretty well.
Sure.
So I'm proud of that, but and then it spawned 3 sequels after that or something.
Yeah.
Which I had nothing to do with, but
right. They didn't want you to direct any of those?
No, well, I originally was going to direct the second movie.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
And Andy was in the second movie, but it wouldn't have been that storyline. But what happened was, it was Live Entertainment at the time. They were making the movie. Then they got bought out by a company called Bain Capital. Mm-hmm. So literally while we were finishing Wishmaster, they got bought out by a company that pretty much was scrapping the slates and pulling advertising money from our release and everything, because they, how it is when the new regime comes in and they're cutting budgets, trying to save money, restructure the company, whatever. So we thought the movie wouldn't even come out in theaters, but luckily it did, and it did okay. I mean, it was like the #1 independent film that year, but then they got bought by Artisan, that became Artisan Entertainment. I don't know how that happened. They got purchased by someone else, but anyway, all the executives that I was working with at the studio were let go. So that was they were the ones who were like, hey, you want to make the sequel? And then I was like, sure. And then when they did make the sequel, it was only for like a couple $1 million.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want. I did the first one for this much, and now I'm going to do it for like a quarter of that.
Yeah.
I don't think I can do that.
Right.
So.
Yeah. How you gonna do that, right? Yeah. I mean, it's got to make sense for you. So then, Wishmaster, which was great. You've directed Buried Alive, right? The Rage, Wishmaster, Demolitionist, and Deadly Impact. Yeah. All great. And I was around for a few of those, which was a good time. I remember you guys went out to New Mexico when you did Buried Alive. I got to come out and, kind of see you in action directing and everything. I would think, was that before we did The Rage? I think it was.
Yeah. Well, no, we had started we had shot the opening sequence.
That's right.
And the car sequence portions.
Yeah.
And then because it was, remember, we were going into winter months.
Yeah.
Here in Ohio, so we weren't gonna have the cool woods and the that forest setting that we wanted. So And then I had the offer to go direct Buried Alive, so went out there to shoot that, and then came back, and 2 weeks later we started shooting The Rage.
Yeah.
Remember? Because my back, I threw out my back on the other show.
Yeah, you had that back thing.
I could barely move.
Yeah.
And I was operating camera.
Yeah.
And so it was, I was told to go into therapy.
Yeah.
By the doctor. You need to go into therapy, and where I go, I start shooting a movie in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, you shouldn't do that. And I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm going,
it's going to happen, boy.
I go, the guys can just help me get up off the ground every day.
Yeah.
But you guys were. Remember, you had to pick me up all the time? I was
like,
I get on my knees with the camera and I'd do a shot, and I'm like, all right, I can't get up.
I remember having the 2-wheel cart.
Yeah.
We had that 2-wheel cart with you on it. And we were like...
Yeah, the apple boxes on the doorway dolly. Or on the refrigerator dolly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we just sat on that and wheeled around with the camera.
Yeah. We made it work, man. That was, I was like horrified on that movie because I can't remember it was in that room in the shop on the stage, and I had this, this is before, camera phones and all that shit. I'd had this disposable camera, and I don't remember where I got it. I remember I either like somebody give it to me. I don't remember exactly how I got my hands on it, but so I'm sitting there and there was no sound, so I wasn't doing anything, and I'm like, I'm gonna take a picture like while he's shooting. So I'm sitting there and I'm standing there and I took a picture, and the flash went off, and I was just like, holy shit! And I remember the one girl turned around and just looked at me like, you're that fucking guy. You know what I mean? I was like, oh man, you didn't notice though, and I just sat there waiting for you to yell cut and be like, who the fuck did that? And I was just like. But it turned out that was probably the scary part about that movie, because I was like, oh my God, I just ruined something. But it was fun. That was such a fun time. I'll never forget that. God, that was like aside from the opening stuff we did, that was like a whole month. We did like a whole month on that in the summer. That was just a blur now, because there's just so much fun stuff we did on set and off. Hanging out afterwards and everything. Just had a great time.
Dealing with just stupid shit like the Winnebago not starting.
Oh man,
and, like pushing it in a frame and trying to, how do we shoot today? I don't know. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, those mishaps, man.
We had the same thing on Demolitionists where the motorcycles wouldn't start.
Yeah.
And we'd have to push it down the ramp. Oops.
Oh,
sorry.
It's all right.
Push it down the ramp in a shot where she's riding, and the stunt girl would ride it down and then stop, but it wasn't even running. It was just coasting,
Hey, but you gotta do it, man. You gotta do what you gotta do. So then, after leaving Los Angeles and moving back home, and you opened up the shop, I met you at the radio store, which we talked about at the radio station, which we talked about before. And then you opened a haunted attraction called, and I remember because I did the commercial for it, Horror Monster Rampage. It was great. Yeah. I loved that. Was one of the most fun commercials. Me and Matt did the commercial together, and
that was something like me and Gino came up with that. Because what happened was that originally was that building my brother had owned, and it was not really used. It was used for like weekend auction house, like computer auctions or something. It was just kind of a big empty space building, for the most part, and. And Gino called because he was doing his haunt for a couple of years at a ski resort.
Right.
And it was doing really well. And I don't know what the reasons were, but like suddenly that venue dropped out for that season. So he had all this stuff, and he's like, dude, I don't have a place to put this on. Do you have somewhere over in Ohio? And he was in Pittsburgh.
Right. Yeah.
And I said, well, let me check. And so I checked with Steve and said, hey, can we build a haunt in this building? And then, boom, I called Gino. Boom, the truck was out,
Yeah.
And we were building like in a week. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And put all those walls up and the mazes. And that was a really fun haunt, too.
It was. It was
inside
big.
Inside the building, yeah.
Yeah.
It went on forever.
It did, yes.
And some really good scares and stuff in there with the false hallways and doors that were like dead ends. And then suddenly the walls opened and people were, So
it was good, man. It was fun.
So that was the first time we came over and did the radio ads and stuff with you guys, and it was you and Matt.
Yep.
And that was kind of my first introduction into haunts. And Gino had been doing them for a couple years at that point.
Right.
And that was his off-season thing. Every Halloween he'd do that. The rest of the year he's working on movies.
Right. Yeah, that was fun, man, because you gave me tickets for that, and me and a friend of mine, and I honestly hadn't been to one for probably a couple years, if I remember right. And then we came to that one, and it was like you said, man, it was and it's kind of where, I get what I do here, is just kind of based off of that. I mean, really, because it's just walking into a new scene, which I know that's kind of what haunts are, but like just making it that like you're in a movie, you know what I mean? And that's really what it was. Because, I mean, you had a lot of, movie stuff going on in there, but there was just so many things where it was like, which I can't do this now, just like you said, dead ends, and it's just like, oh, shit. The misdirection was great, which led to the, all the scares and everything.
You remember the Exorcist room we had where Gino had the Linda Blair had that spun around?
Yeah.
Remember how we had to make the bed raise? So we got a car lift, or the hydraulic car jack, the portable one.
Yeah.
Things, and went in and we reinforced the bottom of that bed and then hooked that to it. So somebody would step on that pedal.
Yeah.
And the bed would raise.
That's cool, yeah.
And they had the sheets on, hanging over it and stuff.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny. But, that's those little tricks.
Yeah.
Where you're like, what do we got? What can we find?
Yeah.
Hey, my buddy has a automotive lift.
Yeah.
Can we borrow it for the month?
Sure.
Know? So.
Yeah, that was cool, man. We had a lot of fun. Me and my buddy went there, and it just, I don't remember, like, price-wise. It was competitively priced, and it seemed like, dude, we were in there forever. You know what I mean? And we had so much fun just interacting because it was very interactive with your actors and everything. And I remember the group, we caught up to a group, and we were like, it wasn't a little kid, but it was a smaller, maybe 10 or 11 years old, and somebody just runs out of, like, from behind a curtain, picked this girl up and took off with her. And we were like, what the hell? And it turned out, I don't know who it was. It might have been Tony, but he knew that family and grabbed him. They were like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
And we were like, oh man, we thought like something was going to happen. We're like, oh, here we go. But like stuff like that was happening, man. And, it was just fun. It was a good time. And then, so then after that, you opened the shop up, radio station closed down, and, I got to come work for you, which was, awesome, to do. Cause I was like, seeing.
What exactly happened with that?
Well, I mean, the radio.
I know what happened, but I want to hear it.
What with me?
No, with the who they got bought out by.
Well, you
had a badass rock and roll station.
We did,
right?
yeah. We had a rock station, and our religious friends from up north came up, and actually from out west. But anyways, it was bought out by a Christian radio conglomerate that is still broadcasting on that frequency, same station to this day.
Right.
To this day, they're still doing it.
So
and
they had to get rid of that sinful rock and roll.
Oh, my God.
And,
well,
they're out of a job.
It was that. And it was right before Christmas. I mean, it was literally in November when, we were just like, what? Like, I came into work, and they're like, by the way, we sold the station and there's no...
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Exactly. And my birthday is on the 18th of November. So it's like my birthday and then no job and then Christmas. And I'm like, oh, this sucks, man.
But that was great because that's then me and you and Matt started working together. And
it
was like,
It did. And it's just weird to think about because I had and the guy that I worked for there, I had a gig set up in Florida. I was going to move to Florida and go down and be his production director. And then I met you. Well, I didn't meet you, but I, talked to you. And I'm like, I think I'm going to stay here and do this. Because, I just think there's more opportunity. And it was definitely the right choice. You know what I mean? Because everything that we did together and then, for me being here, it just all kind of worked out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, that was still, at the time, I was just like, because we're working at a rock station and we're all into that kind of stuff anyways.
Right. And we were just starting to get it. We were like, Vic, let's start doing sound production on our own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like, so we were setting all that up.
Right.
And then winging it on our first movie.
Yeah.
And stuff. It was, but whatever.
It was.
That's the only way you can learn is do it.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's the best way, but it's also the most scary because, you know, like on the Rage, for like the little stuff that we did, like the trash Godzilla commercials, you know, which was fun to shoot. And the porta pot where Gino was running around because he's gonna shit his pants. That was so funny. That was fun. But like the Rage, like I gotta admit, I was sweating a lot because I'm like, oh God, what if I screw this up? You know what I mean? It was just like you didn't want to be that guy, even though I just, you know, was that guy when I took the picture. But yeah, but it turned out great. I mean, it was fun, but it was a knife in the heart when that originally happened though, because we were really close. Like me and Matt and everybody that worked at Z98 was just like, you know, we were like, you know, what we became, a really tight-knit kind of family. So, but it all worked out, and you know, we got to do that stuff. So, anyways, so then after Horror Monster Rampage, I remember not long after you opened the shop, P13, which eventually became Creature Core. We did a haunt at the Galleon place. We didn't run it. We just like kind of set dressed it and everything. And I remember I was over there with Gino. It was basically me and Gino over there almost every day. And then people would come here and there setting that up. That was a lot of fun and kind of, you know, helped me out. I mean, of course, I didn't realize it then. But like as far as, you know, doing what I'm doing now, you know, was kind of a stepping stone, you know, for the haunted attraction. Now, I don't even remember how that came to be as far as why we did that.
With the one in Galleon.
Yeah.
Because they approached us. And
they called us.
That building was disgusting.
It was bad.
It was horrible.
Mold everywhere.
Yeah, it was like, ugh. So that wasn't fun to try to clean that up and do anything in there. But no, they basically, we had all this stuff from that we put together, Gino's stuff and the stuff we put together for the Horror Monster Rampage.
Yeah.
And then they had called and said, hey, you know, would you guys be interested in coming and doing I think it was a JC haunted house.
It was a JC haunted house, yeah.
And we're like, yeah, okay. So then we kind of went in, looked at the space, figured out what we could do here and there. I mean, Gino really spearheaded a lot of that, which is because he was like, I got this, and we can put this here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And and that was a successful haunt too. I think they did really well with that.
Yeah, it was good for them.
Yeah,
it really was.
So yeah, and then I don't know a few years later, then that whole finding those trailers at auction.
Oh yeah,
like, no.
That was geez, man, that was more than a few years. That was probably like 10 years later, because we did, you know, you did all the movie stuff and everything. And then I think that was probably 13 when we opened that first one there, the Mad Effects Lab, which is still there. The building's still there. Yeah, I know. Even the tunnel out back, it's still there. All that stuff is still there. It's kind of fun to walk back there sometimes and look, because it's like a lot of the trees are growing. The trees have grown, so the tunnel's like cracked. Oh yeah. You know.
Did they grow through it?
No.
It just needs a new spray foam.
Probably. Yeah, it just needs patched up. But it's that was a lot of fun. I remember when you called me on that one and said, "Hey, we're doing this haunt." And I was just kind of doing, you know, the advertising and, you know, marketing stuff for it. But that was like, that really is what propelled me into like, this is a lot of fun. This is a cool thing to do. You know what I mean? I mean, I'd marketed for him before, like just doing the radio stuff, but like getting involved and seeing it come together and just like watching everything get built and how it was done, and, you know, seeing you guys do what you do. I mean, really gave me the bug for sure.
That was way too insane.
Yeah.
That whole project, like, it was one thing to find those. Mm-hmm. It was like a 10,000 square feet of 6 mobile trailers.
Yeah.
It was like a mobile schoolhouse, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And they had an auction, and we were like, what? We bid on it, and we're like, what? We won? That's it? You know, I mean, we were like, okay, so we spent very little on it, and then the hard part was moving them, because that cost more than the buildings themselves, was to move them out of where they were, out of a mud pit. I think we went through 80 sheets of plywood, like old sheets of plywood. Luckily, my brother and my dad had containers full of old plywood that they were going to, you know, shred up.
Right.
And they just drove it over, and we started throwing it under the wheels.
Yeah.
As these giant tow trucks are trying to pull these out of the mud. And it's just crushing, like, all the plywood.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got it moved behind the building and eventually got it set in place. And
yeah, that was a process.
It was a big pain in the ass. And then we had to start building the haunt.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I think what did we do that midsummer?
Yes.
And then we started building the haunt like right away to open in October. It was crazy.
It was.
So.
Yeah, because I remember thinking, there's no way we're going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
We're not going to get done. This is nuts. But we did, and it was a good time. I mean, that first year was a little rough, I remember, because I was working 2 jobs. I was working for you and working another place. And that was rough, just trying to get it open. And then, the normal struggles of
like handling a line, getting them to
actors,
actors, just all of it.
Making sure everything worked.
Yep.
Making sure doing the music, because I did a lot of the sound work on.
The music was always the biggest problem.
Yeah.
It's like, suddenly it's like, why'd the music stop?
Yeah.
We're like, And then we had that one room that was the control room.
Yeah, there in the center.
And then it would get, as the haunt filled up with smoke, it started to affect our disc players.
Yeah.
And the lens or something was getting fogged over with that oil. And then it would start skipping, and then we'd have to like it was just,
Yeah. Yeah, that was interesting, man, because though, like, looking at it compared to like what I have now, everything is run on computers. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We run everything.
This was a bunch of boom boxes with with CDs playing that we would record in them.
Yep.
With the music, or use Midnight Syndicate music.
Yeah,
or whatever.
Of course. Yeah.
And then that's the biggest. I mean, we literally had those all over the place.
Yeah.
And then we moved up to those kind of party speakers. Mm-hmm. With that you could put a chip in.
Yeah.
And play, or a stick.
Yep.
And play those, which are really good actually.
They are good. Yeah.
But to get them loud enough sometimes.
Sure.
But.
Well, and the space we had was great because the way, we put the walls in and everything for the path to walk through, it was easy to isolate the sound, Right. But those disc players, I remember bringing one from home. It was like a Sony thing that I had in my garage. I'm like, I got one, and I brought it in for one section of the haunt because we couldn't get the discs to play. And I'm like, this will work. Yeah. And I've still got it at home, actually. Because I just put it back in my garage. But I remember doing that, just pulling out all the stops just to try and make sure that everything went off great. And it did. It was a lot of fun. Robert Englund came. You guys did that meet and greet that one night with Robert Englund, which was a lot of fun. I wasn't there for it, but it was a lot of fun from what I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was cool.
I know. I love it's been great. We just hung out with Robert a few weeks ago. Yeah. Did a horror show down in Florida called... I'm sorry. Spooky Empire, right?
Oh.
Sorry. Spooky Empire. And it was a really good con. It was our first con in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And it seemed to be well attended. Like, I think it was the same thing, a pent-up need to get out and do some normal things that they had done before. And it was kind of packed.
Yeah. So. Well, Transworld last year... because they didn't have it in 2020, so they did have, or I guess I should say this year, technically 21, it was busy, but it was, people wanted to be there, but they spaced out everything. So it was bigger because they had to widen aisles, all this crazy stuff.
So people weren't walking so close to each other.
Exactly. So they're not right on top of each other. But people were and it was crazy. Just seeing, you've been to, how many years you go to Transworld? Probably 7 or 8 years in a row.
Yeah, probably.
Something like that. But just the way things have changed, that the event itself was still good, but there's just, some people didn't want to come. Some, vendors weren't there. And, it kind of affected it a little bit. There was still great stuff, and we still got the stuff we needed. And we vended, we did the booth and everything. But just the whole vibe was different, even in St. Louis. You know what I mean? Like, it was just, I always heard about how it can get crazy down there, but I never had that experience, as many times as I went. But this last year, like we had some crazy things happen, because people then we're still kind of on edge, you know what I mean? So I'm hoping this year it's better, as far as, like you said, the people just wanting to be there and coming out. But some vendors were gone, like there were sex dolls there, which I'd never seen before. They
replaced the haunt stuff with sex dolls?
Well, not everything. But like there was like sex dolls. Like there was a guy selling sex dolls, and I was just like, is this what we've come
to? Were they
the
really good ones?
They were pretty good. Okay. I mean,
Did they talk and everything?
No, they were the good ones.
Okay. Okay.
No, it was just, but I wasn't ready to see that because of the one guy, Mike, that works with us is like, you've got to come and see this. I'm like, what are you talking about? What is it? And he's like, these bodies. And I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking, all right, whatever. So we go over and he's like, no, they're naked and they're, anatomically correct. I'm like, what are they? He's like, they're sex dolls. I'm like, bullshit. And he's like, no, seriously. We went over and I'm like, yeah, that's a sex doll.
That was like $10,000 sex doll.
Oh, I don't remember, but I was just like, they looked real and everything, but there's a dress like a cheerleader. And he's like, yeah, they're all real. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, dude, seriously? But it had me worried a little because I'm like, God, I hope this isn't what
it turns into.
It's going to be turning into, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, haha, funny, but I'm like, is this?
Actually, why didn't they have like the sex dolls, but each one is made up as a horror icon? So you can fuck Freddy or fuck Michael Myers or.
Well, hey, there you go. Let's do that. Let's do it. Yeah, it's everyone always thinks it's the female ones, but we'll make male ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah. I'm sure Robert Englund would love that. Yeah,
it's totally Jason in a jumpsuit with his pants down. I don't know. Anyway,
just a deformed dick. Just But yeah, it was. I mean, it's still fun. It's still fun. A lot of people always come looking for you. You know what I mean? Even as long as it's you haven't been there. People, ask me about how you're doing and everything, and I'm like, oh, he's doing great. He's, in Atlanta, or he's, off doing something. So then, getting close to where we're at now, you know what I mean? You've got a lot of stuff in the works, and that's already done. Like, of course, Black Friday is out now. Mm-hmm. What was that experience like? The trailer looks fun. It was, of course, Bruce Campbell's in it, so it got to be some laughs.
Yeah, it's really fun. We had a great time making it. It was our first COVID, post-COVID, or during COVID movie, where we had to, because we were off 6 months. We came back from Cherry from Morocco. Yeah. Doing Cherry, and then 6 months of lockdown. The country's like,
right,
closing down left and right. Nobody knows what the hell to do. Protocols are not in place yet. Whatever.
Yeah.
And then we segued into that movie in the following November, and we actually started like maybe 2 months earlier than that prepping, and it was our first COVID movie where we had to go by all the union protocols. Mm-hmm. So there was wearing masks and sanitizing and everything throughout the whole thing, and 6 feet distancing and the zone idea and all that.
How does that work for you though when you're applying makeup?
Dude, it's rough. But
I mean, come on.
It was very frustrating, to be honest, because you have, I wear glasses when I'm working close, readers, and then you have a shield on, and then you have a mask on, and the mask is blowing steam up into your glasses, and you're constantly like trying to do stuff when it's like steaming up on you. Yeah. But you kind of get used to it. It is frustrating in the sense of, because when we did movies together, we would have the ability, hey, after rap tonight, let's go hit a bar, everybody hang out, or let's go back for drinks, and or whatever. And so there's like this, you get to know everybody a little more on a film production. Now, the last couple movies we've been on, we only know them from set. They're wearing masks, don't even really know their faces half the time. Yeah. And then there's no outside contact. So there's no outside going to, a movie night or
Right.
dinner night with a bunch of people from the crew, and so that's missing now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad because there's no rap parties. There's no,
Really?
Oh no, there's none of that.
That sucks, man.
So.
We had a rap party for Halloween. Granted, it was all of us. We'd been around each other all season.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That sucks, man. That was like one of the funnest things that we did when we came out was we got to go to the rap party. You know what I mean? Because we just came out to when you were doing the New Mexico stuff. We got to come out and tear down and
load up.
Yeah, and drive everything home.
Yeah.
But we got to go to the rap party for Buried Alive, and that was great because a lot of and then they were shooting. I don't remember what movie, but Woody Harrelson was out there, and he stumbled in, and we got to meet him, and we were just like, holy shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
we were at the upstairs at that Mexican restaurant, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just
all
those.
I don't remember much of that night.
Well, me neither, really. Well, actually, I was okay because I drove us back to the apartment because I was the only one who was sober because I'm the responsible one. But no, I remember that happened, and we were.
This is pre-Uber, by the way.
So. Oh, way pre-Uber. Yeah. And I had you and everybody else in the car. I think that Delaney. Remember Delaney?
Oh yeah, I know.
And God, I can't remember, but there was like 5 or 6 of us in that car that you had. You were out there, that SUV, and you're all yelling at me which way to go, right, go left. I'm like middle Santa Fe. I'm like, I have no clue where I'm at, and you guys are just like, oh my God, that was fun though. But that was some of that they don't do that anymore. I hope that changes, man. I hope that comes back.
We haven't done a rap party. Well, no, it would. Yeah, it was Cherry.
Really?
Yeah, in Cleveland. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that was 19 then.
That was cool.
Yeah.
But no, it's like that. It's really disappointing because you really get to make good friendships and you do on the set too. But it's really the outside connection where you get to know them more. On set, you're more professional. You don't
right.
You don't get to know them as well as you could. Hanging out and having dinner somewhere with a group of them.
Yeah,
so
of course.
it's like.
You get to know them on a little more personal level and makes things easier. Well, speaking of what you brought up, Cherry, and I gotta tell you, that was we were pretty excited when you told me you were working on the movie. Oh, that's awesome! Joe Russo flick with Tom Holland and everything. That's gonna be cool. And then we're probably, I don't know, it was the first or second week of The Haunt, and we get a call from somebody, I don't remember who, but they said, hey, that they want to come down and come go through The Haunt. And we're like, who? And they're, they said, well, a bunch of them, Tom. I was like, what? So they called me up and it was just like, Tom Holland and Joe Russo want to come and go. I'm like, whatever. Because they knew I knew you and that you were working on that movie. So I thought they were kind of messing with me. And I was, that was crazy. That was really cool. When you guys were up there shooting that. And then they came down and went through Blood Prison. It was Tom Holland, Joe Russo,
Sierra Bravo.
Sierra Bravo, Rachel Speak, his makeup person, and a couple of his other.
And then a couple of the crew guys, yeah. And we were like just so stoked. Now this is a funny thing here because we had to really keep it on the down low. We couldn't let it get out that Tom Holland was coming here, because he's a pretty famous guy. So we're just like, here's what we'll do: we'll take him around back. And we'll take them up the elevator, and that way there's no interaction with the general public,
right.
So we don't have any issues. And they were like, great, that's perfect, So we're like, okay, cool. So I can't tell anybody. The only people I've told no one because the reformatory guy Dan Smith, he told me they contacted him, and we're like, oh my God. So we're like, this is going to be so cool. We're thinking, we're going to get pictures, and it's going to be great to, social media marketing and all this other stuff. So the night that they come, they brought this like little mini bus down, and
they had a driver.
They had a driver, yeah.
So, yeah.
They had this like little bus, and it was like a black, and it was cool. And they get here, and we bring around the back, and Weave is he comes and still does the haunt with us, and I was like, all right. He's like, what's going on? And I was just like, okay. I pull him off the side. I go, listen. I said, don't say nothing to nobody, but we kind of got a VIP guest tonight, a few of them. He's like, who? And I was like, it's the guy that plays Spider-Man. He goes, Tobey Maguire? Dude, we started laughing. I'm like,
you know what though? Mike hasn't seen a movie since freaking back then in the theater, so he doesn't know.
So I'm looking at him like with that, confused dog tilted up. What are you talking about? I was like, no, dude, Tom Holland. He's like, I don't know who that is. And I'm like, well, then you're safe, I guess. It's safe to tell you. But he was just like, Tobey Maguire, he's here? That's cool. And I'm just like, oh, get out of here. But we brought them in, and this is another good one. We brought them in, and we take them up the elevator, and we're in Central Guard. And we told them, you guys will be the first group in. That way there's nobody, So we gave them the treatment, And Joe Russo, comes up to me and says, hey, he goes, is there any way you can, radio ahead and let them know that to really mess with Tom? And I was like, what do you mean? And he was just like just manhandle him, And I was just like, oh, God. So I'm sitting there just like, oh my God, I'm like just freaking out about that because I'm like, I don't, because dude, touch passes here can, if I radio ahead and say, hey, this group coming in really wants the treatment, they give it to them.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, I can do that. I said, but you really want me to do that? And he was like, oh yeah, it'll be great. He said, it's gonna be so fun. He's gonna be so awesome. I'm just like, oh, because you could tell this dude coming in, he'd never been to one, so he was a little nervous.
Well,
and
he's from England.
Exactly.
The UK.
Yeah.
I don't know if they do that over there. I don't think they do the same way. So.
Not like that, no. And he's tiny.
Yeah.
He's a tiny little guy. And we have this guy who runs front of the house for us. His name's Joe. And he's huge. And he's got these giant banana hands. He's just this big guy. And he goes, and he had asked us, Tom Holland goes, so what exactly does the touch pass? What is that exactly? And Joe doesn't know who he is. So he goes, it's this. And he just puts his hands on Tom Holland's face, just raw. And he's just like, and then he kind of just shook his head a little bit and then just pushed him off to the side. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be bad. It's going to be bad. And he's just, and he just turns even more white. So, and then there was after that Joe Russo came up to me and said, hey, can you? And I was like, oh man. I'm like, yeah, sure. So I get on the walkie and I was like, hey, zone leaders. I said, the first group in, there's a guy in the purple touch pass, because they're glow in the dark.
Right,
I was like, it's purple. That's the one you want. And they were like, and everyone's just like, got it, we're on it. They're just like beaming back, copy that, we'll get them. And I'm just like, oh, Jesus. So we send them in, and there was like maybe 7 or 8 of them. We send them in, and we go down into the bullpen where the first requeuing line is. And they'd went through our upstairs house, and they went through solitary confinement, which is basically just pitch black. Whatever light is in there, all you can see is rusted out jail cells and just people coming at you from all angles. And he got down there, and as soon as he walked in, he was like, are we done? Are we done? We're done, right? And we started laughing.
No,
like,
you're not even halfway through.
You're not even close, man. He's like, oh my God. By the time he got to the second queuing area, which is just outside my office or outside the studio here, he was having fun. He was really into it, and he had a great time. And
I know that when they were talking to Marcy, I think, about they were hitting some haunted houses up there.
Yeah.
And she said, well, you really got to go down and check out the prison.
Yes. And thank you for that.
And
thank you.
And they were kind of, I think they were really excited because of Shawshank too.
Yes.
They were, as filmmakers, and they were like, oh, okay,
right.
That's that prison. Okay, so anyway, and then the next, after the weekend, they told us, you told us they came down, which we didn't know they were coming down here.
Yeah.
Because we just knew they were going to go out haunting, but yeah.
Well, I just figured you probably had something to do with it.
I gave the Russo's personal assistant all the info.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because then after they left here, we got some pictures with them and everything. So they left here, and then they went to Ghoul Brothers up in Akron, which is ran by Dave Barton.
Okay.
So they hit a couple. I don't know if they hit any after that, but that was like, and then it was funny because I still have, even to this day, I still got Mad Effects Lab actors still working for me here. Yeah. And one of them his name's Zach, and he's right now he's like one of my outside actors. He's a prison guard, but then he was this clown guy, and he was the only one. Because what I said is like, we're doing like this video blogger guy. He just, so I said they're kind of VIPs, and they're just like, oh, okay, whatever.
He's the one like,
yeah. But it was right. It was right at the end. Yeah. It was right at the end. We're standing out getting pictures, and he's just kind of looking at him like, you know, they're looking at like, wait a minute. And he like, so I'm like, all right, guys, we'll take you around through the back. And he grabs my arm and I turn to look at him, what's up, dude? And he's just like, he goes, is that? And I just kind of looked at him and grinned and go, you know who that is? And he was just like, no way. And I was like, yeah. And he was just like, why didn't you tell me? I was like, this is why I didn't tell you right here.
Geek out.
I said, no way, dude. You know, and he was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. You know, and he was real cool with it.
Yeah, if I would have told you, you would have ran home, got your Spider-Man shit.
Yeah.
Brought it over here and tried to get it autographed.
Yeah, exactly. You have every DVD you find or whatever. And I'm just like, no. But that was really an amazing night. And then we sat in my office just sitting there just like, you know, because we took the pictures and we're like, all right, how are we going to, you know, post this? And, you know, guess who came? Because like we had Dog the Bounty Hunter came here one time.
Yeah, I heard that.
You know, and that was a kind of a, oh my Lord, what's going on here, you know? So when that happened, we were just like, oh, this is going to be so cool, you know? And it was fun. And it turned out that I guess Joe Russo like goes to haunted attractions all over. Like he loves them and goes to them all the time. You know, I didn't even know he was from Cleveland. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? So I didn't even know that part. You know what I mean? So
we shot at all their old hangouts up there, their neighborhoods and places they used to hang out when they were younger. So
yeah. And then you guys went to Morocco.
Yeah.
How did that go?
It was an experience. I you know, I'd go back if I had to, but it was you know,
3 times with it.
No fun for the ladies, huh?
Well, no,
for anybody.
It was okay. So it's very warm in the afternoons and then cold in the evenings and the mornings. So you go wearing winter gear, and then by that time you're stripping down to a t-shirt mid-afternoon. Then you're putting winter gear back on.
Yeah.
But we're shooting in the desert, and there was a lot of combat situations with Humvees and gunfire and explosions and helicopters and dirt. So there's dirt all flying everywhere. Mm-hmm. So you'd go back to the hotel and basically shower off like a ton of dirt. You just watch it wash down the drain. It was like in your hair and your butt, everything. Yeah. It was gross. So yeah, that was kind of that was basically the worst of it there. I'm sure there's worse situations like shooting in the jungle, which I would not want to do.
Right.
Like shooting in a hot jungle.
Like on Hiss? Didn't you do that in Hiss?
Yeah, that wasn't as bad as it could have been, but like if, you know, I'm talking doing combat sequences in a jungle would have been like
Yeah.
But yeah, Hiss was kind of that way where you had leeches and shit like getting in your boots no matter what.
Yeah.
Putting salt in your boots and having puckered feet at the end of the day and like pickled feet. But no, it was a great experience though. I mean, I really loved it. It's like going to India. Had a great experience there. Do I want to go back? Not really, but you know, it's like
I don't know if I'd want to go there in the first place. India. So then you just got off. So what are you? What's the future plans, man? What's going on? What do you got coming up?
Well, we have Black Friday out this week, and then the rest of the stuff's not going to be out till next year. We did a show called First Kill for Netflix. It's coming up. We're in post-production on that. We spent over 6 months. We prepped and shot 4 shows, and 2 of them were TV series and 2 films, and so we were juggling running the department on that for those shows at the same time.
Right.
Luckily, they kind of juggled around and the days worked out, but it was kind of rough sometimes. You know, you're like, oh, who are we gonna get to go to set tomorrow? Because I got to go here and you got to go there, and you know. Mm-hmm. But we did that. We did a show called Secret Headquarters.
Oh, there you
go. Which is Jerry Bruckheimer did Bad Boys and The Rock and all that. The producer.
Yeah.
He produced this kind of. It's a family kind of adventure picture.
Yeah.
And I won't give anything away. What?
Where'd you shoot that one at?
I don't want to give anything. What? Like Spy Kids?
Spy Kids meets.
Nah, I don't. Yeah. It's a Goonies, Spy Kids, whatever.
Yeah.
It's a kid adventure picture.
Gotcha. That's cool.
And we shot that in Atlanta. And at the same time, we also did the Last Days of Ptolemy Gray. which is
Apple TV.
Yeah, it's an Apple TV thing with Sam Jackson and Jake Garber, who was my good friend Jake Garber. He handles all of Sam's makeups.
Right.
For the production, he did some amazing makeups for him, and then we were brought in to do all of the rest of the stuff. So, the other effects in the show.
That's cool.
And then we did some stuff on Shazam too, which is mainly visual effects elements.
Right.
So nothing that you'll even see in the movie, but
right.
They were elements for visual effects to be able to, and for actors to be able to act with replicas of the creatures that are, interactive stuff. Anyway, so yeah. But
does that mess with like what you do as far as like, I mean, what are your thoughts on the, practical effects versus, the visual effects?
Well, I always like the mix.
Yeah.
So using digital to augment practical if needed.
Right.
Of course, there's certain things that you can't do. It depends on like the creature's anatomy.
Yeah.
And, it's a great show that's out right now, and just watch the Jurassic Park version of it, because it's a show called The Movies That Made Us.
Yeah.
I've watched all of them.
Oh, have you? Okay.
Several times, actually, some of them. And the Jurassic Park one is very, like, when you see what happened to Phil Tippett and Stan Winston, even though they were doing practical stuff, and they were doing stop motion animation, and then you see how the guys actually there's two guys that were like top guys on Spawn, Mark Dupay and Steve and Spaz Williams, I think I hope I got that right. They were doing the groundbreaking animation at that time of like making the real dinosaurs, or the animated dinosaurs, and it wasn't stop motion. And you had to watch the documentary because they weren't even supposed to be doing it. They were told not to do it. Don't step on toes. Blah blah blah. You know what I mean? And they kind of did it anyway, and they changed the industry with just going out there and going, I think we can do this. We should show them we can do this.
Yeah.
Even though they're told not to do it. But you realize watching that what we went through at that time, because that videotape circulated around town of the dinosaur walking test.
Yeah. And
we all went, oh, we're not working anymore.
Right.
And it kind of went that way with the big monsters, which it kind of needed to, because it was either stop motion animation, digital, or we can't do it. We can't make a 10-ton robot run down the street and smash up cars.
Right.
It's not going to happen. Or King Kong or whatever. We can do the close-up head. We can do, portions of it. We can do the dinosaur in place attacking things, but, you can't do the running shots.
Yeah.
And stuff. So that's where the technology is great, and there's a place for it.
Yeah.
Then it kind of got overused right after it became the big new thing.
Yeah.
And then everybody wanted to stick in their movies, and suddenly you have American Werewolf in Paris, and everything's done digitally, and you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
Can we stop this now? Now it's coming back. Everybody likes to mix it up a bit. So.
Well, and it's come a long way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, but you still, if you don't have the money to do the right visual effects.
Exactly.
You're still like, it's still going to look like shit.
Yep.
So.
This whole, what is it?
Computer makes it easier thing is not true. It's all about the artist. But,
yeah, exactly.
So.
Well, because there's things where like you see it and you're like, wow, they did a great job. And then there's other one. And it's not all just like low budget stuff. I mean, I'm not going to, I won't throw nobody under the bus as far as movies, but like I saw some big movies. I'm like, and everyone will agree that is horrible.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Well,
how is it bad when you're at that level?
Because at that level, they probably had half that, or say a third of the amount of shots they end up with, or half the amount of shots they end up with by the end of they still have an enormous amount of shots to get done by the time a set release date is already there. So it's like, it's almost an impossible task. And sometimes things just get cheaped out.
Yeah.
And it's like, we'll live with it.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, that's a rough one, because it's like, there's, it's just hard to, say I can't do it. So it's hard for me to say this is garbage. You know what I mean? But just like looking at it, and that was one of the things that really sucked, first getting into it. Because even when we were doing the little stuff that we did, like on the Devil's Rejects, when Dave was doing all that stuff. And I remember him explaining it to me. I'm kind of watching. This is like 04, 05.
Dave Mallory.
Yeah. So it was like, wow, okay. And he was sitting there and he was explaining it to me because I was, just watching him one day. And then he's like, and there you go. And that's how you do it. And I was like, well, that don't seem too bad. And he's like, okay, next frame. And I was just like,
yeah.
Shit.
He's got 100 frames of that.
Yeah. I was like,
it's like,
oh, got it now. I understand. Yeah. But even then, so then when you watch the movie, so when I watch another movie that we had nothing to do with, I'm like, I see it. I see it plain as day now. This sucks. I don't like it.
Now when you're watching a Marvel movie, you realize like there's 1,000 effect shots or whatever.
Yeah, everywhere. Yeah,
and they got like they got multiple companies, hundreds of people. Working on this thing, and they're under a deadline. Yeah, and it's rough.
Dude, I thought Kurt Russell, they did good. I thought they did great on him in Guardians of the Galaxy when they showed him the younger version. Yeah. I thought that looked really good.
Well, they've done that. That's been effective in a couple of films. Recently, so where I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah, it looked great. But then you got like, did you watch Mandalorian?
Yes, first 2 seasons, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, just what the whole Luke Skywalker thing.
I lost my mind at the end of that.
Oh, I was like,
I think Kevin Smith did too, because I was like, I think we were texting and we were like, holy shit,
Yeah, there you go.
He's like, I was just like a giddy kid. He showed up at the end of that.
Yeah, that was great. Yep. That was good stuff. So you did. Speaking of Kevin, you did the Iron Bob suit, yeah?
For Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah, that was killer. I remember you talking about that, and I'm like, that's got to be fun to do too, doing a whole suit. He was stoked about that, yeah.
Yeah, we had fun with that. It's actually at his comic book store now in New Jersey. So Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash.
Right on.
We did that, and then we did two projects. My friend Cleve Hall, who passed away.
Yeah, I remember
last year. So he came out and worked on us on the Jay and Silent Bob movie.
Yeah,
and fabricated a lot of that suit for us because it was a one-off, no molds except for the helmet.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of it was all scratch built.
Really?
So yeah, and then after that we did a TV series for Netflix, which originally wasn't for Netflix. Ended up being sold to Netflix, but it was Fear Street.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did this blobby creature that Chris Nelson, who was, remember Chris?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Rage?
Yeah.
Chris was key in the department, so he brought me on to help him out on set a few days, and then that blobby thing came up, and they need someone to build it, so they hired us, and I brought in Cleve, who fabricated the big portion of it, and then Greg McDougall and me did the rest of the stuff on it with like painting it in silicone, patching it and all that, because it was this big pulsating blob with air bladders, and we had these controllers made that made it inflate and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And so we put that together in a few weeks, and we were shooting on that. But that was like I think that was the last thing I did with Cleve. I think we did the Silent Bob thing first, and we did Fear Street, right? And then and then recently Cleve passed away, which sucked.
Yeah, I heard about that. But what are you gonna do? I mean.
And Cleve's one of the first people I met.
Yeah.
I started working in Hollywood. Yeah.
Right.
I met him at John Beekler's along with everybody else there, Howard and John Vulich, who passed away, and Everett Burrell, who's a big visual effects supervisor now for Netflix. He does Umbrella Academy. And
oh, there you go.
So we all came up doing practical effects together.
Yeah.
And then Everett got the bug.
Yeah.
He got his what do you call it? I forget the name of the computer at the time.
Yeah.
It was one of the first computers you could do animation and stuff. I used to, it was what the hell was that called? Anyway, Commodore. Remember the Commodore?
Oh yeah.
Commodore computers. I think
course.
that's what that was. And they started designing makeups in the computer for Night of the Living Dead remake with Tom Savini. That was the first time they started doing that that I remember. And it was Everett and Woolwich. And their company Optic Nerve, which is now owned by Glenn Hetrick, who does the Star Trek series and stuff. Yeah, Glenn.
Yep.
So, anyway.
Yeah. That's what it's got to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, as far as on a personal level, I just want to say, just it's great having you on here, and I appreciate you coming on and doing the shakedown with us, and to get your perspective, because that's kind of what it is in haunted attractions now. Or, how are we going to make this look as much like a movie set as we can? You know what I mean? And that was, I remember, in the Mad Effects lab, that was like what you told me. You're like, we're building movie sets, and we're going to put them in this building. And I'm like, yeah, of course, it's going to be awesome. So that's kind of, where I've taken it, just like listening to some of the stuff you talked about. I mean, not just for Mad Effects Lab, but over the years, you know what I mean? And, working with you and, House, cause he's, the big haunt guy. And, I got Brian Dembski, who's doing my set work for me and everything. Got a great crew here. My builder, Mike Tom. It's just really cool. And I've kind of, working at, P13, Creature Core, whatever you want to call it, kind of helped shape what I'm doing, and, I just want to say thanks on a personal level for getting me, giving me a shot.
Dude, thank you. It was totally enjoyable.
Yeah,
working together all those years. So.
Absolutely. Great times. And a lot of people don't know that you even, I mean, I'm not here at the reformatory, but you did the Paranormal Penitentiary before I did Blood Prison, which kind of segued me into Blood Prison, because a lot of people, and that's the truth, is a lot of people, like the new people that we got to come here, they were like, well, I'm going to come because I want to learn to do makeup from Robert Kurtzman. And I'm like, that's not how that's going to work.
Yeah, he's not here.
Yeah, because you had that, I think it was Gerald's game that you had to, I think you were here opening weekend and then you had to, go to set. So I'm like, it's not really working that way. So, but it worked out great. I mean, that year we had a great year, and, it was definitely a transition from the Mad Effects Lab where we did our biggest year, I believe, the year before that.
Yeah.
And then
into something really big.
Oh man!
Starting from scratch, and then it
was light at the end of the tunnel. It turns out to be a train, because it was just like, we were just, we got the doors blown off, and we were so used to, our smaller, because I mean it's smaller in the sense of it was from square footage to guests.
How do we fill this? How do we do
right?
How do we manage it?
Oh man!
But
it turned out well, and we had a good time doing it. And
thanks to you.
Well, I mean, it was a team effort, because I could name, Weave and Tony and House and you. I mean, it was just this whole big thing, and it really showed me a lot. You know what I mean? So it's just like you gotta give credit where it's due and your roots, and that's and we talk about the radio station stuff, and I met you and Gino there, and then it kind of evolved But, I'm grateful, man. I really am. And I appreciate you coming on onto the shakedown here and spending some time. I know you're a busy guy. And, I just hope that, the future's bright for you. I know you're kind of, with everybody else in this whole thing. And we don't, it's kind of not bleak, but we don't know what's going to happen. But I just hope it clears up and, we kind of get back to the way it used to be. You know what I mean?
I would love that.
Yeah.
But no, thanks. I mean, it's always good to hang out with you. And,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've known each other forever. So it's great. You're family.
So yeah. Thanks, bro. I appreciate it. Well, listen, man, let's step out of here
right.
And, we'll continue on. But thanks again for coming in. Thank you, Marcy, for stopping by. And, we'll call it a day for there. Bob, you make sure and be safe in your travels and make sure and let me know what's going on in your in your wonderful world of special effects. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, Bob.
I'll
Thank
you.
you.
Show what that is sometimes because it looks like a Spock handprint on the dog ass. So.
Yeah, it's a blown out butthole.
Like, yeah. So, anyway.
All right, dude. Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right, have a good one.